And today in particular, we're talking about the relationship between toxic shame and the addiction to self-improvement. We're going to dive into how struggling with toxic shame can lead us to get overly fixated on personal development. Now, when we talk about personal development, I'm essentially talking about any habit or routine or goals that we set and take on in an attempt to build up our ego. And it's important to note here that ego building is a very normal part of life. When I use the term ego, what I mean is essentially the part of ourselves that is monitoring the relationship we have between our subjective inner world and how we fit in the objective outer world. So our egos are very important things, and there's nothing wrong with being strategic and thoughtful about which skills we want to develop and what ways we want to work on ourselves so that we can have a more easeful exchange between our inner worlds and our outer world. But like anything in life, what is benign under the right circumstances can be absolutely addictive and destructive under the wrong ones. So if we are pursuing self-improvement, not because we want to bring more of our authentic self into the world, but because we are wanting to distance ourselves from our authentic selves and put more of our fake selves into the world, because we believe that that's the only version of ourself that would be accepted by the world, this is when we start to develop a toxic relationship with self-improvement, because we are essentially trying to kill off our essence and start living full-time as a version of ourselves that leaves out a lot of who we are at our core.
Fascinating quote here. Everybody is a genius, but if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So what this lady said here is, the world needs you, your authenticity, who you actually are. But the problem with schools and universities and society in general, they value certain types, certain sports, certain traits, certain business activities way more than a lot of other types. But you must be yourself, because that is where you bring the most value to this world and to everyone around you, and design products and services that change lives within those spheres. Imagine Einstein if he thought, gee, you should rather be an American football player, or American football players thinking they must rather be ballerinas.
We're going to talk about how to develop a healthier relationship with self-improvement. Because again, it's really wonderful to think about which skills you want to develop and which ways you want to show up in the world that are different from how you're showing up now. But we want to make sure that when we're doing that, we're taking ourselves with us. We're not neglecting and leaving behind major parts of who we are. I want to make clear that we can get addicted either to the actual actions, so to going out and starting new routines or setting new goals and working really hard towards them, or we can get addicted to just thinking about it. So to sitting at home, reading self-improvement blogs, or watching videos on ways in which we would like to change. And finally, we can be proud to be ourselves.
This is critical. This is very critical. Don't use self-improvement to try and become who you are not. Use self-improvement to become a better and better, more educated and sharper instrument for what God has created you to do. Just a side note here, I think it's very important to find people who share your passions and interests, who love what you love doing. The problem with a lot of people is they're not putting in enough effort to find people who love what they're doing. If you love running, or if you love reading and you love being indoors or cooking or whatever it is, you must do the effort to find friends who like what you like. Otherwise, you'll always feel out and odd, and there's something wrong with you, and then you'll want to try and change yourself, which is the worst thing to do, because you're throwing away the gift God has given you to be who He created you to be.
Everything, including our visions of the future and memories of the past, are all happening right now. You either love yourself in the moment, or you don't love yourself. Those are the only options. So when we start talking about how to shift into a healthier relationship with self-improvement, we're going to talk about how to show love and respect for the person who is doing the improving, rather than only having respect for the idea of ourselves who is done improving.
So to take God's love, it says Jesus and God and the Holy Spirit loved us while we were still sinners. But this does not mean He does not want us to improve and grow, but it does not mean that our improvement and growth is what justifies or brings upon us His love. Even if you look at these drug addicts, look what drugs does in 2.5 years, or from 2000 to 2007 in 7 years. The parents and the spouses and the children of these people love them, although they are saddened. So remember, you are loved, no matter if you throw your life away. But growth and development is an exciting thing you put on top of that, but not a reason to be loved.
And I was no exception to this for the majority of my life when I lived with toxic shame. I would use self-improvement, get really focused on some objective thing I wanted to improve, like getting fitter or making more money or developing some new skill, believing that I could only engage with other people and with the world if I were as close to perfect as possible. I would head into a period of self-work, believing that I would come back as an acceptable version of myself. This is the core difference between healthy and unhealthy self-improvement. Are we becoming more shame resilient so that we can actually tolerate shame, ergo take many more risks in the world and expose ourselves to deeper relationships and experiences of life? Or are we trying to narrow our world so that we are keeping shame out?